Welcome, I'm Tatiana Darzi. A woman from Wuhan named Ms. Wang suspects that she might have contracted the CCP virus as early as October 2019, when she developed CCP virus symptoms and had to be admitted to the hospital. After recovering, she tried to contact her doctor, but she was not able to reach her, and even the head nurse who helped treat Ms. Wang began to deny the existence of her doctor or that they were in any way involved in treating her.
According to a Wuhan resident, Wuhan may have experienced an outbreak of the CCP virus as early as October of last year during the World Military Games, but the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, covered it up and blocked news of the spreading virus. At that time, Ms. Wang developed a serious lung infection and was admitted in critical condition to Wuhan First Hospital. Later on, after recovering, she suspected that she had been infected with the CCP virus. When her repeated efforts to contact Dr. Wang, her physician at the hospital, failed, she became concerned. She wondered whether her doctor had also contracted the virus and died. Ms. Wang told NTD on May 25th that, being a longtime petitioner, she is blacklisted by Wuhan authorities. When the World Military Games were held in Wuhan during October 18th to the 27th, 2019, local authorities placed her under forced surveillance in a hotel room. That's where she developed coughing and a fever. On the 13th day in the hotel, at the end of October, she even vomited blood and felt that she couldn't hang on anymore. Only then was she taken to Wuhan First Hospital by the people assigned to monitor her. She was immediately admitted and hospitalized for 8 days, by which time the availability of beds was already limited, Ms. Wang said. In January, before the CCP virus epidemic became public, the hospital called her and asked her to come back in for more treatments. She was still having a persistent cough and fever at the time, but because she was so busy with her petition, she didn't go back to the hospital.
My primary care physician, Dr. Wang, and a head nurse were in charge of my treatment. In January, these two medical personnel called me to let me know that they would treat me for free since I was still sick at the time. They must have suspected that I had the CCP virus because my symptoms were a low fever and coughing every day, but I didn't have time to revisit the hospital.
In March, Ms. Wang was watching a TV program in which the head nurse spoke in an interview. Ms. Wang learned from the TV program that Wuhan First Hospital is one of the designated hospitals for CCP virus patients, and their infectious disease unit admitted people who contracted the CCP virus in the Wuhan Huanan seafood market in December last year. Ms. Wang said she panicked as she just then realized that she might be a CCP virus patient too. So she called the head nurse to ask her, but was surprised at the reply she received.
I called the head nurse, but she denied that she was my head nurse. I said, "But I have your cell phone number saved in my phone. How can you not be my head nurse?" And then I asked her about Dr. Wang, and she even said that there was no such doctor.
Ms. Wang said she could not get a hold of Dr. Wang, so she suspected that the doctor had died of the virus.
I called Dr. Wang's number, but someone else answered saying that this doctor did not exist. Later, I believed that she was dead because the hospital confirmed the death of a doctor, but nobody knows who it is.
A few days before Wuhan went into lockdown on January 23rd, Ms. Wang, still having a low-grade fever, traveled to Shanghai. After the Wuhan lockdown was lifted on April 8th, she wanted to return to Wuhan, but her friends in Wuhan told her that the epidemic was still serious and that it was better she didn't return. Besides, her house had been occupied by the corrupt officials, and she wouldn't have a place to stay if she came back. As a result, Ms. Wang had to remain in Shanghai, and she is thinking about getting herself tested to find out if she once did have the CCP virus.
During the 7th Military World Games held in Wuhan from October 18th to the 27th last year, many European athletes had indicated that they might have contracted the CCP virus during their visit. This coincides with the timeline when Ms. Wang might have also contracted the virus.
Many European athletes have previously indicated that they might have been infected by the CCP virus during the 7th Military World Games held in Wuhan on October 18th to 27th, 2019. On May 25th, a Wuhan visitor told NTD that she had also developed symptoms of the CCP virus last October. She indicated that she had symptoms such as coughing and fever during the time of the Military World Games.
I felt like I had the CCP virus. I was coughing and having fever during the time of the Military World Games and vomited blood after 13 days. The symptoms were severe at the time, and I went to the hospital after I could not hang on any longer. The hospital was going to admit me as a critical patient, but the person who was monitoring me said I could not stay in the hospital overnight.
Ms. Wang was under surveillance by monitors as a result of the appeal. They did not allow Ms. Wang to be hospitalized, so she had to stay in the hospital during the day and return to the hotel at night. However, it was difficult to receive treatment this way, so she was later admitted to the Wuhan First Hospital, but the conditions of the stay were extremely poor.
I was hospitalized for 8 days. My lung infection was pretty serious. The nurse was going to give me a suction, but I didn't do it because I have a severe heart disease, atrial fibrillation, which does not allow intubation, so I didn't do it. But my inflammation never went away.
As a result of the unpleasant experience during the hospital stay, Ms. Wang filed a complaint against the hospital. Unexpectedly, in January, she received an unusually cordial call from her primary care physician and head nurse.
Dr. Wang was my primary care physician from the first hospital, and another head nurse called me asking me to go back to the hospital because I was still sick and also saying that they would pay for my treatments.
At the time, Ms. Wang was still coughing and having a low-grade fever, but she did not go back to the hospital for treatments because she was busy appealing at different agencies. When she arrived in Shanghai from Wuhan on January 18th, she still had a low-grade fever. At the time, she didn't suspect she might have contracted the CCP virus until she saw a CCTV interview with the head nurse who took care of her during her hospitalization.
A CCTV journalist interviewed the head nurse in March or in April. I'm not sure, but I was in shock when I heard her words. She said that their infectious disease unit admitted a person who contracted the CCP virus in the Wuhan Huanan seafood market in December last year. Later, this person was transferred to Wuhan Jingyingtan Hospital after they had recovered. When she called me to go back to the hospital, the epidemic was still under the wraps within China. She certainly suspected I had the CCP virus and was afraid that I would spread the virus.
According to the report from the CCP, the first confirmed case of the coronavirus was reported on December 8th last year. 30 doctors from Wuhan Jingyingtan Hospital mentioned in The Lancet, an international peer-reviewed general medical journal, that the first confirmed case was symptomatic on December 1st. Also, South China Morning Post reported in March that there was one patient in Hubei province confirmed with the virus as early as November 17th. Ms. Wang recalls that during her hospitalization last October, the availability of beds was limited.
Were all the beds occupied at that time?
Yes. It was very nerve-wracking. There were young people and old people. The majority were old people, and they all had their lungs infected. The availability of the beds was extremely limited, and many elderly died. During the Military World Games, no one knew it was the coronavirus, so they all said that the death was caused by pre-existing illnesses.
Ms. Wang said that even after Dr. Li Wenliang blew the whistle, the Wuhan City Workers' Cultural Palace still went ahead and held a literary competition which drew participation from many employees of different companies. After that, the city of Wuhan and Hubei province held 2 meetings, and the Baibuting community also organized a banquet that drew participation by more than 40,000 families. All of these activities had contributed to the spread of the CCP virus. Currently, although the city of Wuhan has lifted the lockdown, Ms. Wang is still unable to return.
I bought the ticket to go back to Wuhan on April 25th, since the lockdown was lifted on April 8th. But friends in Wuhan told me not to go back because they knew people were dead and being dragged out. Houses were occupied by the officials, and if I went back, I would have to stay in a hotel.
Ms. Wang expressed that she had to remain in Shanghai, and she's thinking about getting herself tested to find out if she once did have the CCP virus.
Investors demanded compensation for the damages left by Shanghai investment company fraud and were violently dispersed by the police. 2 investors from Yangchun City jumped to their death when they were unable to withstand the reality after losing all their money.
An investment firm in Shanghai has seen its financial management products failing, causing many investors to lose all their money. News has since broken out that 2 elderly people in Yangchun City, Jiangsu province, who could not bear the situation, committed suicide by jumping from a building. According to the data, Yinlai Assets Management Company Limited had made investments in 16 companies and wholly owned 7 of them, including Yinlai Wealth in Shanghai that specializes in assets management, wealth management, investment banking, and internet finance. Since 2018, there have been instances of investors reporting that the financial products they purchased with Yinlai Wealth were overdue and not able to be paid back. Some of the victims said that many investors, some from other cities, all went to the offices to defend their rights, but their efforts were frequently suppressed by the local authorities. One victim, Wang, is a salesperson at Yinlai Wealth in Suzhou City, Jiangsu Province. She said that Yinlai Wealth's asset investors exceeded 10,000 people and involved in more than 3 billion yuan, $418 million. She personally had invested more than 700,000 yuan, $97,700, and introduced 5 clients to the company. Now she cannot get her money back.
The client was throwing a tantrum at my house, telling me to ask for the money. I could not do anything. My parents are not healthy either. They both are more than 80 years old. The client told me that if the money is gone, her life is gone too. We have been writing letters, more than 1,000 letters, but still heard nothing.
On May 6th, Wang Yan and hundreds of investors went to a police station in Shanghai, holding signs and kneeling to demand compensation for the damages left by the company, but were violently dispersed by the police. Li Ming, who runs a clothing business in Suzhou City, Jiangsu Province, said he initially saw a photo of the bank owner Pao Xiaodong with a leader of the Chinese Communist Party, and also saw Yinlai Wealth's business certificate, business license, and many honorary certificates, so he believed in the company. Not only did he invest 1.1 million yuan, $150,000 himself, but also introduced 4 friends to invest.
In the group of investors, the highest investment was more than 40 million yuan, and there were investments of 20 million yuan and 30 million yuan. A professor at China University of Mining and Technology invested more than 10 million yuan. China University of Mining and Technology has been hit the hardest because many professors, retired seniors, old party members, and the old cadres are victims.
Li Ming said that the victims involved came from different parts of the society, and his friend told him that 2 elderly people in Yancheng City had been unable to withstand their new financial reality and committed suicide by jumping down from a building. The CCP's Mouthpiece Media claimed on March 17th that Yinlai Assets Management Company Limited had set up a private online platform called Pocket Gold and an offline store named Yinlai Wealth to sell various financial management products. It reported that the funds had been raised illegally with the promise of paying high returns ranging from 6% to 13% as bait. 9 suspects have now been arrested.
Scholars and professors from the National Association of Professors in South Korea expressed concerns of danger and harm from multiple perspectives of the pro-China policy in the region in a discussion.
Geopolitically, South Korea and the Korean Peninsula have always been the main obstacle for the Chinese Communist Party to assert hegemony over Asia. Therefore, the CCP has been developing a pro-China strategy in South Korea. Scholars and professors from the National Association of Professors expressed concerns. A discussion was held to analyze the status and harms of the pro-China policy from multiple perspectives.
If South Korea becomes a pro-China country, it will give the Korean government excuses to gain interests out of it. However, standing with the Chinese Communist Party is equivalent to giving a fatal blow to the US-led liberal international system. In order to make South Korea pro-China, the CCP conducts in-depth infiltration tactics from holistic perspectives, including political, economic, social, and cultural.
Professor Lee said that from a geopolitical perspective, South Korea and the Korean Peninsula are the first targets of the CCP in expanding Asian hegemony. The free and democratic South Korea and the Korea-US alliance are also considered as the main obstacle by the CCP to expand its hegemony. Therefore, a pro-China strategy was launched for South Korea.
China's internal rule along with the external expansion policy have exhausted the CCP, and excessive bluffs have actually caused the CCP and its People's Liberation Army to be rapidly depleted. In fact, it has been split into several forces internally, which controls different parts of the economy.
At present, with the condemnation of the CCP virus, the world starts evaluating the losses and rejecting the CCP, and many international companies are withdrawing from China.
Scholars believe that the CCP is struggling during the crisis due to its one-party totalitarian political system. At the same time, its expansionary totalitarianism is also facing resistance and challenges from the democratic movements in Hong Kong and Taiwan. The Pro-Social Justice National Association of Professors is a conservative citizen group composed of 6,300 professors from 377 universities in South Korea.
Several residents from Jilin and Liaoning provinces said in an interview that the cost of living has been inflated, the cost of testing has increased, and there are no subsidies or financial aid from the CCP regime after the regime imposed the lockdown.
Northeast China is a heartland of 3 provinces, Jilin, Liaoning, and Heilongjiang. After Heilongjiang was hit by the CCP virus, the neighboring 2 provinces also experienced lockdowns due to the spread of the virus. Subsequently, inflated costs for food, testing, and quarantines have become a norm in the new Chinese epicenter. Residents in Jilin and Liaoning were interviewed after the regime imposed a lockdown. On top of the draconian lockdown measures and inflated costs of living, not only is there no aid or subsidies from the regime, but the cost of testing is much higher. Mr. Peng, Jilin City.
There's panic buying for food, veggies, medicine, meats, and so on.
Did the price go up?
The price did go up. It's about 5 yuan, 70 cents, per half a kilo for potatoes. It used to be about 1 yuan, 14 cents.
Are the stores closed?
The stores are closed. Places like hospitals and supermarkets will need to scan the passcode on cell phones. You can't go into a hospital without a cell phone. They need to scan the code.
Are there relatively less people on the streets?
Yes, people are quite aware of the risk and try not to go out. Trains have stopped. The farmers' markets are closed.
Miss Chang, Jilin City.
Is the outbreak serious now?
Certainly. Life is very hard for people like us.
Can you work?
No, we can't. Everything is stopped. Life is too hard.
Is there any financial relief from the government?
We are just ordinary people. What can we expect from the government? To be honest, I can't help crying. Who can we talk to about our suffering? It's just way too difficult for us. As for the government, we are in no position to comment, isn't it? We can't talk about it.
Mr. Li, Shenyang City.
I'd like to know if there's been an outbreak in Shenyang recently.
Yes, it's locked down. The containment measure is too severe for us to comprehend. The entire hospital was locked down. No one can get out and no one can go in. It's quite scary. It was said that a couple of people were infected in the hospital. It sounded not so serious, but the restriction made us feel it's serious.
How's the cost of living affected?
The price won't come down for sure. The Chinese will absorb all the pain, even if it's 10 years of catastrophe. It won't affect the regime. The price of food has gone up twice as much as last year, but the wages remain the same. We have to pay for the test ourselves. The regime will not lose anything. It doesn't hurt the regime, but the people don't even have a job.
Are there many out of work?
Yes, Chinese have a high tolerance for hardship. Even if they only get to eat grass and roots, they will just swallow the pain. The Chinese will endure the most. They just absorb the bitterness. But it certainly will not affect the regime a bit.
How much would it cost you to do a nucleic acid test?
It's 200 yuan, $28.14 for the test. But with various items that go with the test, it adds up to more than 1,000 yuan, $140.73.
Isn't this profiteering from a national disaster?
Exactly. That's what they do. With this and that, they raise the cost of the test to more than 1,000 yuan, $140.73.
The interview was conducted by Xiong Bin and Chang Chun of the Chinese language Epoch Times.
Yanya Kielek, the host of American Thought Leaders, interviews former acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker on how communist China is a greater threat than Russia. China has killed tens of thousands of Americans by supplying fentanyl. The regime has stolen our intellectual property and technology and have used them to spy on American citizens. The Chinese regime didn't notify the U.S. about the outbreak of the CCP virus that turned into a deadly pandemic.
FBI director and others concluded that somehow all of the Trump team were agents of Russia because they felt that China was a bigger threat. I can tell you, based on my experience at the Department of Justice, China is a bigger threat. You know, China has killed tens of thousands of Americans by supplying fentanyl, a powerful opioid, deadly killer to the United States over the last several years. China has stolen our intellectual property, and attempted to use their technology to spy on American citizens. And now we have the coronavirus, which clearly originated from China. And, we were not notified or information was not shared with the United States. And, tens of thousands of American citizens have lost their lives there as well. So, I don't think there's any doubt that China is a bigger threat than the Russians. It doesn't mean we shouldn't guard ourselves against all of our threats. And, one of the things you realize at the federal government is you have to be able to do multiple tasks at the same time. But, to have a foreign policy disagreement between a new administration and an old administration turn into the criminal investigation and destruction of individuals involved with the new administration, I think is just it's disgusting, quite frankly.
To watch the entire video on American Thought Leaders, please visit the link below. The following charts show you the most recent numbers regarding the CCP virus pandemic. The Chinese Communist Party's cover-up led to a pandemic that now threatens the lives of people around the globe. With over 5.7 million people infected, China is still defensive about independent international inquiry into the origin and spread of the CCP virus. The Epoch Times has initiated a global Sign the Petition campaign calling for investigating, condemning, and rejecting the CCP. We believe that investigating and exposing the truth is the only way that we can remain safe. Let's take action. Sign the petition at ccpvirustruth.com. That's all for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this program with friends and family to keep them informed about the latest news and updates. Thank you for joining me. See you next time.